In now, Emily Schrader, a journalist and associate fellow at Tel Aviv Institute. Emily, thank you so much for your time. Let's just talk about the newest aspect of all this. How significant is this newly announced ceasefire extension?
Well, I mean, I think it is Israel doing everything in their power in order to ensure the safe release of as many citizens as possible. It's not really a surprising move that the Israeli government would opt to continue for an additional 2 days if we do see that we are getting innocent people who've been kidnapped back. I do have to add at the same time, however, that the fact we're even in this situation in the first place is a little bit ridiculous that the entire, and yes, I mean entire international community, including the Arab world, didn't come down like a ton of bricks on Hamas and demand the immediate and unconditional release. Because what you're seeing happening now is that people who have been convicted of terrorist offenses, people who have stabbed innocent people on the streets, in one case is one of the prisoners who was released actually stabbed someone so severely that the man is paralyzed for life. These are the people that are being released. It's not as if it's a prisoner exchange or an innocent hostage for an innocent hostage. That's not what's happening here. We're talking about releasing not one, not two, but three terrorists in exchange for one innocent person, in some cases a child as young as 10 months old. So there's a lot of asymmetry on this entire equation that really shouldn't be made in the first place. These hostages should have been released unconditionally and immediately, and anyone remaining should be released today. That should be what the demand is.
And Emily, you certainly bring up a very good point there. I know you had a chance to speak with some of the family members of the hostages prior to the release. Have you had a chance to speak to any of them since the releases started?
So I have not spoken. I've spoken to a number of different families over the past few weeks. Some of them, at least in two cases, the families have had their loved ones return home. In one of the cases, only one family member returned home. Others remained in Gaza in Hamas captivity. I think everyone in the Israeli public understands why it's important that we bring these hostages home, even if it means that we need to have a ceasefire. But at the same time, the Israeli public also understands that we will not see a sense of security restored until this terrorist organization, with the funding and backing of the Iranian regime, is adequately destroyed. And that means they are no longer capable of carrying out the kind of attacks or any attacks that threaten the safety and security of innocent civilians, which is something that we have dealt with for over 20 years on this border with Hamas, with the Gaza Strip. That cannot continue. So yes, first we need to bring the hostages home, and then we need to continue destroying Hamas, because this will not be over, by the way, not just for us, but also for the Palestinians. Palestinians are suffering greatly today because this wasn't done sooner. So the Palestinians have every reason to be on the same side, ironically, of Israel against Hamas. They're oppressing the Palestinian people as well. And we can't forget that when we discuss what's actually happening on the ground on both sides of this issue.
And Emily, before we let you go, there are so many moving parts in all of this. What do you think happens moving forward? What does that look like?
Well, as I stated, I think Israel needs to do everything within their power in order to ensure the immediate release of as many hostages as possible. At the end of the day, however, when that time is up, Israel needs to be very, very deal firmly with this terrorist organization, because we have already seen the consequences of not doing so. There have been prisoner releases before. Even Yahya Sinwar, who was the mastermind of this October 7th terrorist attack, was released from Israeli prison in a prisoner exchange. We are not going to see an end to this hostage diplomacy type behavior, which, by the way, is another MO from the Iranian regime. We're not going to see the end to this until we stop playing the game. And the way to stop playing the game is to eliminate the terrorist organization Hamas for good. This is not a Gaza Strip that we want to see. We want to see Palestinians live freely and be prosperous and have safety. And that's never something that they're going to have as long as Hamas is controlling that enclave.
All right, journalist Emily Schrader, we certainly appreciate your time. Thank you. Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find News Nation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of News Nation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.